Hi, my name is Jeremy, this is Red Means Recording, and this is the Roland MC-707 groovebox production station thing. I had this on loan from Roland. I've had it for about a month, and I've played with it for about 2.5 weeks, trying to get to know it to do a review. I'm going to send this back to Roland after this review, unfortunately, because I actually really like it. And this video is sort of just to go through what it can do, how it might compare to other devices in the field that it inhabits. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Because I'm not keeping this piece of gear, I'm not going to get quite as deep into it as I might something else. And that's something I'm going to talk about in a Patreon post, the whole loaning gear thing and how it feels as someone in my position. But that's neither here nor there for this particular video, so let's talk about the Roland MC-707. This is an 8-track groovebox with an extensive library of synthesizer presets and drum kit presets that you can sample into. You can slice samples, you can perform, as I just did with mute groups. There are clip launchings, you can play, you can step sequence, you can real-time record, and there are even some scatter performance things, which are kind of cool, which I will show off in a second. So I think the best way to show off sort of the workflow is to make a new project and get started. The screen is nice to have. Comparing this to something like the Deluge, this does give you a lot of information here that you normally wouldn't get on something without a screen. I guess that's not really a fair comparison, but it is nice to have this here to edit the synths and stuff like that. I do know the Deluge really well, so the workflow isn't that big a deal for me. And even though there is a screen, there's a fair amount of sort of menu diving and shortcutting you really have to learn in order to get this thing to work. So that may turn you off, it may not. It's one of those things that if you spend time on it, you will get fast and it will become second nature to you. So each one of these can be selected as a track. When I select one of these later ones, it's asking me what type of track I want. A tone track is a synthesizer track. A drum track is a drum track, where each one of these is a drum pad. Drum plus comp is a drum track with a 6-channel compressor. We're not going to mess with that. And then there's a looper, and we're not going to mess with that either because I just never really cared about that feature of this. But do note that it has time stretch, which is very important to a lot of people. Let's start off with this one, which is going to be a drum track. I can change any one of these tracks to anything if I want by hitting up and deleting the track here in this little clip mode here thing that you see. And I'll just show that off real quick. Delete. Okay. And then when I select this track, it'll ask me what I want it to be. So I'll hit drum. So then I can hit sound and go into this menu that has the option of loading kits or various parts of kits or recording. And then I can manipulate that later. So let's go ahead and select a kit. And then over here, you actually have the drums. So as you move through these pads, which are very nice, the build quality of this in general is excellent, become immediately responsive to whatever this kit is. So that's a great way to preview what's going on. And this is also applicable to the tones as well, with a synth engine. We'll just go with this for right now. So now that I have an instrument that I can play, and you can hear these are very velocity sensitive, which you can adjust in the pad control mode, I can enter notes in a couple different ways. I can step record. I selected that hi-hat, and now I have put steps down here. And if I hit start, you'll see that the little cursor is going through. So that's cool. I can increase the measure length. Right now I'm just on 1 bar, but if I go over to clip, edit by hitting shift and clip, I can go down to the step length where it says 16. And if you watch as I increase the step length, this will increase here. Now that I've increased the step length, these are populated down here. Obviously, you can have a step length of anything you want, which is pretty nice. You can also change the step scale. Right now, it's set to a pretty standard 16th note, so that each one of these represents a 16th note, but you could change that to 32nd or something like that. So you don't have to mess with your tempo too much to be able to get subdivisions within the grid, which is nice. I'm going to set this to 32 and exit out. So now you can see that I have 2 16-bar patterns down here, which is really useful. And I can navigate through those by hitting the measure left and right. I'm going to slow this down a bit. I'm going to hit tempo and adjust this thing here. You can see the tempo is now adjusting. Let's go to like a nice 100 or something like that. So we're not going too crazy. I'm going to lay down a pretty basic pattern here. So I selected the kick and step sequence the kick, and I'm do the same thing for this. Cool. And we have that hi-hat that I set sort of as a metronome. And we're just going to play the hi-hat. So I'll hit record, wait for my bars to come around. Cool. So I like the kick. I want to replace these hi-hats and stuff like that to something a little bit more organic. I'm going to go into Shift Sound, and I'm going to select, either by pressing the thing or by navigating it to it with this, the hi-hat. And then I'm going to hit Enter. And now I'm in the instrument select mode, and I can select another hi-hat for that if I want. So let's go into our preset sounds, and you can see that it's already put me in the bank for that particular type of sound, which is pretty useful. But I want organic hi-hats, not electronic hi-hats. So let me find just hi-hat. Yeah. And again, it will preview, and I can hit play and hear it with that, which is actually really nice. I like 1. Let's do the same thing over here. Hit exit, do this, hit enter, and pick a different preset or sound for that. And we'll just select the corresponding open hi-hat one. So now we sort of have almost like a sort of synth wave thing going on, which is nice. Within these kits, you do have access to each pad's control over level, course, release. So this is pitch. The reverb send. So the way this works is if I turn this all the way up, and I'm going to turn it up on the snare, and then I send this to the reverb, depending on what this level here is, it will send to the reverb. So you have individual reverb control over each one of these hits, which is actually pretty dope. In these menus, if you see that you have like a little empty space down there, that means there's more information, more things that you can control. So you hit function, and then you get things like the send to the delay, or the envelope mode, pan, and fine tune. So that's really cool. Each kit can have a multi-effect on it. So if you go to MFX over here, you get access to the extensive collection of digital effects that this thing has. Like, just a mind-boggling array of different types of digital effects. I feel like a lot of this stuff was ported over from like some of Roland's flagship workstations, like the Integras and stuff like that. And yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot of stuff in here. So like, here's a lo-fi compressor that I could put on the whole thing. Cool. So I've shown you that you can make a kit, select from presets, and then go in and edit each one of these things. We're going to talk about how you can do this with sampling as well a little bit down the line. I want to show off the synth engine next. Let's go over to here and select this. And now if we hit sound, we get access to this insane amount of presets. Look at all these. This is crazy. The way that the synth engine works is that you do have access to traditional virtual analog sort of synthesis, amongst other things, but you also have a lot of wave PCMs that you can use as your oscillator sources, which means that you have just tons and tons of things like pianos and other acoustic instruments that you have at your disposal, which for something like this, like for like a groovebox, like I think is really, really cool because you can mix and match synthesis with more acoustic sounds and they all sound really, really good. So I'm going to go down to like an E bass. I think that sounds pretty cool. Let's go ahead and see what we can get. If I haven't made a clip on it, so you can see over here that there's a little clip here in that little slot. If I haven't made a clip yet, I can go down to the measure and adjust this. And I will have access to, let's see, now it's 64 steps. If I keep on going, I can just make this like ungodly long. I don't know what the limit of steps is on this thing, but it seems to be pretty long. You can always check the manual for that if you want. So I messed up somewhere down here. Let's go ahead and show off what you can do with each one of these little steps. I have a little flub. So we're going to clear this step, and then we're going to press this step, and we want C. So in the melodic modes, pressing these steps allows you to put in the notes for each step. And then you can see as I'm holding it down over here, I get access to this step edit menu, which is cool. I can change the length, and as I change this length, you're going to see these little lights sort of dimly light up. I don't know how easy it is to see right now, but if I hold this down, I can get more. So like there, that's goes into that length, and that's fine with me. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that and see if it's something that we can work with. Got a little overlap over here, so let's go ahead and go into here and see I have two notes going. So I'm going to go like that and get rid of that note, and then that should be fine. Let's move on to another track. What should I do with this one? I'm going to keep tone. I'm going to add like a synthesizer of some kind. So shift sound. I'm going to show you how to use the synthesizer engine. So with all of these things, you can see that there's an edit underneath here that you access by holding shift up here. I hate that the shift button's up here. It's one of the weirdest pet peeves that I have. It's just like, it's so divorced from almost everything. I know why they did that, but like, I'm always waiting for it to be down here because this is where I'm usually working. So sound will get me into the ability to pick from these presets here. And then if I hit shift sound, I can just edit a preset. I can edit whatever sound I've made, or in this case, it's a blank virtual analog preset. So the way that this synth engine works is that there are four partials. I don't know what they're called. Four oscillators, I guess. So in the oscillator modes, PCM, which gives you access to, say, you can see these banks here, banks A through C, and then all of these waves. So you can mix and match these together. Let's pick something like... That's kind of cool. Let's do that. And then I can go over to here to oscillator 2. There's a virtual analog oscillator with all the usual suspects of saw, square, sine, etc. Those voices? Wow, neat. So we're going to hit function and go down and change the coarse tuning of this particular partial. Cool. So then you have things like pitch envelope. You have things like two different LFOs, and you can see that they are auto-mapped to some things like pitch and cutoff. A filter envelope dedicated, and then a mod matrix, which is right here. Finally, you have individual mix, where you can set your send to reverb and delay. Change the panning and level of the thing. Obviously, you can adjust the level here too. And you have access to the filter sweep here. Mod is usually assigned to a pitch modulation, and then this is usually your reverb send right here. Mod can be reassigned. I think all three of these can be reassigned actually, which is pretty cool. In control, you have access to things like whether or not this is monophonic or polyphonic. One of the things I really like about this is you have access to an EQ for each one of these sounds. This engine is really powerful. It's pretty impressive. So in this case, I have a 3-band EQ here, and then I can change what the EQ target frequency is for each one of those bands. So if I didn't want any low in this, I can go back here and turn this down. And again, fine versus chorus adjustments by holding down a thing. I believe Shift does the same thing as well. Yeah. So let's go into the amp and adjust our attack. Too much. Finally, over here in effects, we have access to that, again, very extensive multi-effects section that is available within the device. So let's do like the phasers are. We're going to look for a chorus for this. I really like the Juno chorus. I don't know, let's just see how this works. Make some changes to this so that I can actually use it. There's a bunch of different filter modes, what you kind of expect, and some variations from low pass, high pass, band pass. So now you get a sense of how to program your own synthesizer if you wanted to do that. And again, access to the insane amount of partials and oscillator types and noise sources and PCM sources, and then being able to stack 4 of them. And you know, this is not, the synth engine is not a joke. It's not like a half-assed thing like you might have gotten in a previous Roland groovebox or some of the current offerings of grooveboxes that are out there. Let's talk about the effects real quick. In the reverb, you can see here that you have access to a couple different types of reverb. If I go down to here, I can change this to all of these different options here. So let's do this non-linear one. So, you know, this is not going to win any Grammys, but we're just showing things off. So let's go ahead and just add some more stuff because we can. Tone track, shift sound, sound and presets, and what else could we do? If I was making techno, this would be something I would reach for. It's really beautiful. Anyways, so that's a little pattern made up out of clips up here, and just going through and finding presets that I liked and making some edits and stuff like that. In the pad modes down here, you can do mutes like I showed earlier. There is a chord mode. If you have a chord thing that you can actually set the chords for, which is really useful. Note mode we talked about, and then scatter is really cool performance mode that you can apply to all your stuff. I think it comes from the ARIA line of stuff that they've come out. So pretty cool option there. Clip works like almost like Ableton, where each one of these clips here can be launched. You can see that I have a row of clips, and I just reset them. And then I tried to trigger the row underneath that and nothing happened. So if I wanted to do more stuff with this arrangement, so to speak, I can go over to one of my clips and then over here select, like, let's say copy. And you have to press this little thing. It says ready to paste. And then I can go down and paste it. And then now I can choose whether or not I want to paste like the kit itself, the sound, or the phrase, just the MIDI data, or all of it. And now I have a new clip on there, and I could like copy, let's say, this one, this bass line here, and I can go down to here and say paste, and let's say I just want the sound. So now if I go back into note mode, I have my drum kit. So you can go down the line and create a song, so to speak, with these clips. I do not believe, and feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, that there is a way to automatically have it go through these from top to bottom like a song mode. You can see how easy it is to make sequences in this thing and make new clips, iterations of clips, have independent length over each clip, and just kind of go to town and make whatever generic bullshit this is. I think one of the ways that this really shines is as a sampler. So that's what we're going to go into next. I'm going to show you how to sample from, in this case, my iPad from YouTube, and slice up samples and make beats from that. And that's where I've been having the most fun with the MC-707. So let's do that right now. Alrighty, it's time to record some samples. So if I go, I have a blank project here. If I go to sound, I can do record. And I believe this works for tone tracks too. So you can record wave files or external sources or even internal sources directly to like an oscillator, which is pretty dope. I'm not going to show that off, but I know it's possible. So I'm going to go to record, hit enter, and the first thing we want to do is turn our external in up. I have this iPad hooked up to an IK Multimedia iRig Pro, and it is going into the external in of the MC-707. So I'm going to choose my source here. You can see that I can choose each track. I can choose the mix out. I can choose PC because this acts actually as like an audio device when plugged in, and you can, I believe, stream these channels to your DAW, which is pretty dope. But I'm going to use external in. And we're going to find a drum loop that we like. My trigger here is, I'm going to pause this because I feel like I'm going to get a copyright strike. You can choose different record modes here. Enter will mean that it'll just record when you hit enter. And then we have clock, and then we have trigger. So I'm going to choose trigger. I'm going to hit enter to standby. I'm going to find a place on here that I like. So I'm going to hit enter to standby. Now it's waiting for the trigger. And now you can see it's recording. I'm just going to get enough for this drum loop. And that was enough. So there's my drum loop. If this was too low, I could hit normalize, and I can choose the amount I want it to normalize to. So we're just going to normalize this to 0 dB, which means it's going to make the loudest peak in it 0 dB, which is the loudest that it can be. So now if I hit function, I can preview the sample. You can adjust start and end points here, and you can adjust those for the slices that we're about to do as well. And then you can zoom in and all that good stuff. So this is one of those benefits of having like a little screen. You can actually sort of get down with your waveforms. If I hit over, I now have the ability to mess with the position, which will be the slice, zoom, and then our slice function. You can set slice to hard, medium, or soft. And I'm going to set it to medium. This is going to be the amount of transient detection it does to slice. Then I'm going to hit the little button there on the knob, and it's going to slice. And now we have slices. So with using function and position, I can move through these slices. And if I wanted to adjust the loop points for that, I could. So now I'm going to select a pad. And I'm going to select this pad, and I'm going to hit enter. That sample is now run to that pad. Let's find another position that we like. It's a good snare. Let's go ahead and write that to this pad. Just select the pad you want. That's kind of cool. I'm going to put that up here. Open hi-hat. And now we need a closed hi-hat. So let's go back to that one that we heard before. All right, and we're going to deal with volume there in a second. So now I have a drum kit. If I exit out of here, I can go into Shift Sound, and I have access to all of the same controls that I showed you off earlier. So we're going to go to the multi-effects here, and we're going to put a limiter on this. Where's the goddamn limiter? There it is. And adjust our settings a bit. Cool. So now we have a sample drum kit. It was that easy, just getting it off YouTube. So I will program a drum loop in a second. I'm going to go over here and do that same thing that we did earlier where we turn this into a kit. So I'll go out here into my clip mode. I'll hit up. I will delete the track, and then I'll select a kit. So I'll hit sound, drum, enter, record. Just to get a little bit of this loop. Thank you, Alan Moore's Trio. And then hit normalize. And now I'm going to go through the process of picking slices here. And I'm going to use the soft slice mode because I want bigger chunks of that. I don't want it to like pick up on every single little transient. All right, so one of the issues that we're having now is, go ahead and exit this. We have a great little kit that we can play, but you can hear that they're all overlapping each other. So we need to assign these to what's called a choke group or a mute group. And we're going to do that by hitting Shift Sound and going into this pad thing. And then we're going to select one of these pads. And we're going to hit enter like we would if we were doing a different sound replacement. So, you know, you can go back and replace any of these sounds if you want. So I'm going to go to pad edit, and I'm going to go down here to control, second menu over, and I'm going to go mute group 1. And I'm going to hit these pads, and it's going to auto switch, which is very useful. So now they all cut each other off, which is perfect for this particular type of genre. All right, so let's go ahead and do something with this. Now I can hear here that my like little time slices aren't quite the right thing, so I'm going to turn the whole kit down a little bit in pitch. Go back into sample edit for my snare and zoom in and see that I have a little bit too much beginning there. So I'll fix that. Same thing for this one. All right, cool. So now my kit's edited and I can go into the fun stuff of playing this. Really, really fun. This is why I like the MC-707 right here, is just directly ripping stuff into it, slicing it up, and going to town with all of the effects and all of the controls that you have over each one of these individual slices, the multi-effects, the robust sequencing, even though the song mode kind of thing is not really that fully baked. And yeah, just there's a lot in here. There's so much in here. So to sort of condense it down into just like, I like to slice up samples and use them is kind of dumb, but I mean, that's where I found the most joy in using the MC-707. So my final takeaway is that if I had the ability to keep this in the studio, I probably would. I really like the workflow in terms of what I just showed you. It's very immediate. It's kind of cool just to be like, all right, I'm going to sit down and just randomly find some cool sources off the internet, slice them up, make a project, make individual clips for that. And you can see how fun it is to play. These pads are super responsive. I have access to the multi-effects to like, you know, mess around with stuff. Like what is the that lo-fi compressor sound like on this? Ah, it's so fun. It sounds so good too. Anyways, that is the MC-707 from Roland. I hope that this gave you a good idea of what it can do. God, this video, I've been filming for like an hour. Hopefully I can get this down to about 30 minutes in the edit. If you like what you see here, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe. I've got a lot of content like this, and I will do a lot more reviews and sort of walkthroughs of stuff in the future. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, that'd be awesome. There's a link in the description. This is currently my full-time job, as I was laid off like last week. It feels like a month ago, but it's only been a week. My name is Jeremy, this is Red Means Recording, and I hope you have a wonderful day.